Hey, it is Ash Wednesday. I am glad you are catching this. It's Ash Wednesday, and it's the beginning of Lenten season. It's leading up to Easter, which is so important for us as followers of Christ, and probably more important for non-followers if we would recognize it, right? I mean, it's important for all of us. Just some people don't know, but we gotta keep letting them know. We gotta keep getting out there and reminding people what we do. So Lenten season, Lenten means spring. One of the definitions is spring. So it's springtime. It feels kind of springtime today. So we thought maybe we'd get outside and do this. So we're in bustling downtown Boscoville. So when you hear the diesel trucks go by, you'll just know, okay, that this is what we're doing. But as we think about Lent, it's 40 days, 40 weekdays between Ash Wednesday and Easter. And it is a time of preparation. We're reminded that Jesus spent 40 days in the wilderness. 40 days in the wilderness to prepare himself for ministry. He's spent time in fasting. He spent time, well, he was tempted as well, and we'll come back to that. But that 40 days means something to we who are followers of Jesus. And so we spend these 40 days and we think about, the way I like to think about Lenten season is taking inventory of our faith. Like, where am I? Where am I in my followership? How am I doing in following Christ? Am I following Jesus as he really is? Or am I trying to follow a Jesus that I'm sort of making up in my mind so it's easier to follow, right? And so I thought today what we would do, and as we think about Lent, you know, we think about preparation time, we think about spring, we think about planting seeds in a time of growth, okay? That's that springtime, right? But we also think about that Catholic thought of penance. As we think about Ash Wednesday, it is every one of us has sinned. We've all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And so we, like Job, maybe we need to sit in our ashes, in our shame, and just be reminded, you know, by my sin, like I'm the reason that Jesus had to hang on the cross. Like I'm a part of it. He hung on a cross and died for sins, and I have that. And so we think about Ash Wednesday, and we think about our penance, and what can we do to grow closer? That's where I want to lean towards. What do we do to grow closer? So I thought for today, a little bit of a Bible study. I want to take us back to Matthew 16, one of my favorite episodes of Jesus and the disciples. I think there's such intimacy there. I think there's moments of just figuring out, what does it mean? Who is this guy that we're following? And Jesus gets a chance to reveal himself. And so I want us to think about following Jesus as he really is, as he is according to Scripture, not what we think and hope and wish for, but who is he? What does he mean to me? Why is it important for me as I head towards Easter to prepare myself to be better at following him, prepare to serve him? All right, so a little bit of Bible study. We're in Caesarea Philippi. Jesus asked the disciples, "Who do you say that I am?" And Peter speaks up. He says, "You're the Messiah, the Son of the living God." And Jesus says, "You're right. You got it, Peter. You got it." And he says, on that statement that I'm the Son of the living God, I'm the Messiah, I will build my church. I will build a movement of people that will make a difference in this world, and the gates of hell will not be able to withstand. It will never end, because Jesus will build his church. We are, as that church, we are called out. We are different from the rest of the world in our actions, our attitudes, the way we live life, the way we focus on life, the way we see the world. And so then in Matthew chapter 16, verse 20, that's Matthew 16:18, where he says, Messiah, the Son of the living God. And then he says, verse 20, it says, then he, Jesus, sternly warned the disciples not to tell anyone he was the Messiah. So if you have your Bible, you can go to Matthew 16 and follow along. But he says sternly, don't tell anybody. You got it right, Peter. Hey, disciples, I'm the Messiah, but don't tell anybody. Well, why would Jesus tell the disciples not to tell? Like, don't tell. Like, we're on this field trip in Caesarea Philippi. We got it right. You're the Messiah, the Son of the living God. This is a group of Jewish men who, their ancestors have been waiting for centuries for the Messiah. And he's him. And he says, but don't tell anybody. Well, why can't we tell? Well, here's why. Because Jesus understood that the disciples did not understand. They didn't know. The Messiah, you don't understand what that is. The disciples had an idea of what Messiah would be in their minds, and in their minds, They thought Jesus, the Messiah, would be a political leader. They thought he would be a military leader. He thought he would be the one to overthrow the Roman Empire and bring peace back to Israel. Well, Jesus was in the line of David. They knew the Messiah would be in the line of David, and King David was the last king to offer peace to their country. He was the last one to defeat all their enemies and offer peace to their country. And so that's who they thought he would be. So he said, don't tell anybody I'm the Messiah because you guys don't even understand yet. And he starts to explain it to him, and you can hear him like take a deep breath and go, okay, let me try to explain this to you as we get started. Yes, I'm the Messiah. Now let me try to explain. Like, you guys are excited because we're going to Jerusalem, and you think something big's going to happen. Well, it's going to be big, but it's not what you think. And so he says this, Matthew chapter 16, verse 21, he says, from then on, Jesus began to tell the disciples plainly. I love that. He said plainly. It wasn't in riddles. It wasn't in stories. It wasn't in it. He tells them plainly that it was necessary for him to go to Jerusalem, and still reading, and that he would suffer many terrible things at the hands of the elders, the leading priests, and the teachers of religious law. He would be killed. This is Jesus speaking. He's saying, I'm going to be killed. I'm telling you plainly. But on the third day, I will be raised from the dead. And it says, he told them plainly, again and again, he told them, here's what's going to happen. Well, remember the disciples arguing about who would be at Jesus' right and left side when he came into his kingdom? Well, I don't think he was the Messiah they thought he was going to be when they were asking for that, right? Because Jesus said, I'm going to suffer and die at the hands of religious leaders. I'm going to hang on a cross. I don't think they were fighting to see who would hang on his left and hang on his right. I don't think they got it. They didn't understand. And so, I guess, as we're thinking about Lent, do we understand? Are we understanding who we're following? Are we understanding how we need to be growing in our faith and moving forward in our faith? And the disciples are thinking, the Messiah is this great warrior defeating his enemies, and Jesus is talking about humbling himself? That doesn't sound like great warrior. Humbling himself before his enemies and giving up his life? That's not what they signed up for, or not what they thought they signed up for. So Peter speaks up. I love this, and we're going fairly quick, but hang on. Peter speaks up in verse 22, the next verse. It says, Peter took Jesus aside, and began to reprimand him for saying such things. You can't say you're going to die, Jesus, right? Here's what he says. Heaven forbid, Lord, this will never happen to you. Now, you can kind of hear the concern in Peter's voice, but it was also concern about, well, the revolution that he thought was going to happen. It was different, and he wasn't used to it. He wasn't ready for it. And so Peter says, well, if you do that, then how are we going to overthrow the Romans? Like, if you're just going to die, how can that happen? Well, Peter didn't understand what the Messiah was all about. And so Jesus did, and he responds with this. Verse 23, it says, Jesus turned to Peter and said, get away from me, Satan. Ooh, that's kind of rough. Get away from me, Satan. This was Peter. This is one of his close buddies. And he says, get away from me, Satan. You are a dangerous trap for me. You are seeing things merely from a human point of view, not from God's. Satan. I mean, think about that. Why would he call him Satan? Well, let's think back. Do you remember the 40 days, as long as we're talking about Lent? Jesus, 40 days in the wilderness, he was tempted by Satan. And one of the temptations was, hey, Jesus, I will help you bypass the cross. You will not have to suffer and die. You just bow to me, and I'll give you all the kingdoms of the world. We'll just bypass it. Well, what did Peter just say? Hey, Jesus, why don't you bypass the cross? Why don't you just do it differently? It's the same thing that Satan said. And so Jesus knew there was only one way to accomplish forgiveness for people. The wages of sin is death. The only way to save them from their sin is to die. And so he knew if he was going to take care of the sins of the people of the world, not just a country for a few decades, but the sins of the people for the world throughout history, he was going to have to hang on a cross and die. And, Peter's stuck in his human point of view. He kind of missed the part where Jesus said, I'm coming back after 3 days. He just missed that part, right? He forgot to factor God into the equation, that God can do those things. And he just had a human point of view. Well, after Jesus harshly addresses Peter, he goes on. Verse 24 and following. It says, then Jesus, I'm still in Matthew 16. It says, then Jesus said to his disciples, if any of you wants to be my follower, okay, so now we're getting to Lent, okay? If you want to be my follower, You must give up your own way, take up your cross, and follow me. If you try to hang on to your life, you will lose it. But if you give up your life for my sake, you will save it. And what do you benefit if you gain the whole world but lose your soul? Is anything worth more than your soul? The question now is, well, if that's following Jesus, do I really want to follow Jesus? And this is a time to take inventory in our faith. Do I truly want to follow Jesus? Do I want to surrender to him as Lord? Do I want to follow him as we head towards Easter and I'm reminded of what he's done for me and for the rest of the world? Do I want to follow him? You know, Jesus might not be the leader you hope for. Because this leader, Jesus, it's not about your comfort. It's not about what you want. And it's going to cost you. You know how much it's going to cost you? Everything. It's going to cost you everything. Jesus says if you want to follow me, you turn from your selfish ways. That's what he just said here. You turn from your selfish ways. It's not about you anymore. You want to follow Jesus, then you give up. Ooh, that hurts us, doesn't it? Give up. Yeah, give up your dreams, your wishes, your desires, your rights to yourself. And you start latching on to Jesus' dreams and Jesus' desires and his wishes. And you allow him to be Lord, and he has every right to you, the timing, you know? But he has every right to you. And he gets to say, Jesus might have different plans than your plans. And we surrender because that's what it means to follow Jesus. So take inventory. Where am I at in my faith? Am I trusting him for everything? And Jesus says, take up your cross and follow him. And he says that back in Matthew 10. And he says, you know what it looks like to follow me? Take up your cross. Grab a cross. Now, so this Lenten season, maybe we ask ourselves, am I sure I want to follow Jesus? And if I do, am I willing to give up? Am I willing to follow him? Do I have what it takes? Can I take inventory of my relationship and say, yes, I'll follow you? You know, Jesus talks about the choices that we have in these verses from Matthew chapter 16. He says you have a choice. You can follow me, or you can follow your own ways. You can hang on to your life, or you can give up your life. You can deny yourself or live for yourself. You can take up your cross, or you can ignore the cross. It's up to you. You can follow Jesus, or you can follow the world. Jesus gives us a choice. He loves us so much. But what will we choose? Will we surrender our life for the sake of the kingdom, or will we continue to hang on to our life and our kingdom? Keep your soul, lose your soul. Eternity is a long time. You can share in the glory of Jesus and the reward, or lose it. So as we wind down, to deny yourself and take up your cross and follow me. To deny yourself means you give yourself completely to Jesus, the Messiah, the Son of the living God. And you share in his humility, his shame, and his death. Well, that sounds exciting, doesn't it? But I can't tell you how good it gets when we actually do it, when we trust him. It's way better than what this world has to offer. And so, taking up our cross doesn't mean that we just have some burdens and, you know, I broke a toe a little while ago and it's slow healing. That's not my cross, okay? A little bit of a cold today, or allergies or whatever. That's not my cross. To take up a cross is giving up my life for the sake of Jesus and saying, I will do whatever I have to do for one more person to meet Christ and their eternity gets changed. It's not about me. I give up my right to myself. I surrender to Jesus daily and say, your dreams. What are your dreams, Jesus? Not mine. It means I sometimes have to sort of surrender my dignity a little bit. I become a bit of a doormat. And that's okay. Jesus did. Think about the things he did. And we're followers. And so as we think about humility, Christ-like humility, that's what we do. If it means I lay down my life for another, I die to myself and become a servant, it doesn't mean I lay down my life and I just die for them. It means I give up my life for their sake. Like, what am I willing to do for their eternity to be changed? This is Lent. It's deny self. There's ashes, right? And it's all about Jesus. And so, let me finish with this. Matthew chapter 16, verse 27, it says, "For the Son of Man will come with his angels in the glory of his Father and will judge all people according to their deeds." As in, Jesus is in control of all of our eternities. He gets to say. And so I hope this Lenten season will kind of lean into that Jesus, the Jesus of Scripture. Maybe deny ourselves, follow him, find out what that means. What does that look like? Now, on Sundays, we're doing a series called Urgent. It's the last few teachings, the last few actions of Jesus before he hangs on a cross. And he had some urgent things to teach. And so I hope you'll join us on Sundays. And I will be praying for you throughout this Lenten season. And, let's just keep growing in our faith. Let's take inventory. I want to follow Christ. This world could use a few more people just plain following Christ. So I hope you'll join me in that this Lenten season. And we'll head towards Easter. He is risen. See you then.